Well, hi there, and welcome to another episode of Hey, What's Next? Well, recently my wife asked what computer she should get to replace that aging, hand-me-down 2015 MacBook Pro. Honestly, I wasn't sure. I knew that the budget was going to be limited between $250 to $300 and she wanted something current. And after discussing it, she decided a Windows-based PC would be fine. Well, I had my marching orders and I started researching the current crop of mini PCs that are out there, and my main source of truth, that's right, YouTube, of course. My current experience with PCs is that laptop that I have for my full-time job, a iPro to mini PC with that N97 processor, the review I did last year, and the HP Elite Desk. So after discussing my findings, after watching those videos and looking on Amazon, we decided on the GMKtec M6. My only request was that I could test it and share the results with you all. Spoiler, I'm impressed. The GMKtec M6 Mini PC. This is what's next. The GMKtec M6T. This is an AMD processor, 6600H, with the newer graphics processor, the 660M. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at what comes in the box. It comes with an HDMI cable, your VESA mount, or VESA mount is what I like to call it, GMKtec documentation, the AC plug, the power brick here, and the computer itself. Well, we know what an HDMI cable is, and we know what a mounting is. We know this, but what I wanted to do is look at this device real quick. This one puts out 120 watts. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the GMKtec M6. This is the front. We have our reset for our CMOS, power button, headphone jack, Type-C connection, 2 USB, and I believe these are 3.2. We have the ventilation on the bottom and both sides, and on the back we have another USB-A 2 connection, USB 3, Kensington lock, vents for the cooling system. We have an HDMI connection, a DisplayPort connection, two 2.5 gigabit Ethernet ports, and your DC barrel plug. To get to the documentation, this opens up. You get the nice little warranty card, and here we have the information and the specs related to the device. We have the Ryzen 5 6600H. This is 6 cores, 12 threads, way more power than what my wife will be using it for. That's the manual. I know what you guys wanted to see is like, how well does this perform? What is my wife using this for? She does a lot of scrapbooking and card making, so she has one of the Cricut 2 devices that will connect up via USB, and she can control that from this device, along with watching YouTube videos, getting email, surfing the web, some basic stuff. Probably this is overkill for that. We actually looked at the N150 or an N97 processor. I already have that iPro. Having used that on a regular basis, I really thought that we needed a little bit more power for, and again, the longevity of the product. If Microsoft keeps going the route that Apple does, which is deprecating hardware after a period of time, I figured we'd have this for at least a good 6 or 7 years before we may have to upgrade again. Enough jibber jabber. Let's go ahead and get this opened. Before getting into testing, let's take the top off. There's one. If I bust this, I will never hear the end of it from my wife. There is the cover. And then we have, it looks like 4 screws. And then this should just come right on out. Yep, there's some clips here on the side. Clips here. We have this fan. We have to be very careful because there is a connection right here. There are the 2 memory sticks. There's the SSD Let's see what's underneath the SSD real quick. That pops right out. And there is our wireless card. It is a MediaTek model number MT7922A22M. And right before I was about ready to add everything back in, there is another M2 slot right here. So you can add additional storage to this unit without removing the original. So thumbs up on that. So before we get this device set up and running, what I wanted to do is just kind of give you a breakdown of the specs of the computer that my wife currently uses and what this has. So our current computer is an Intel Core i5-6200U with a CPU running at 2.3 gigahertz. There's 8 gigs of RAM on that device, and it is using the 64-bit Windows 10 operating system. This device here is significantly faster than the device that she currently has. And this is an AMD Ryzen 5 6600H, 6 cores, 12 threads, AMD Radeon 660M, 6 core, 1.9 gigahertz graphics card with DDR5 running at 4800 mega transfers per second. This device has 16 gigabytes of that and a 512 gigabyte M.2 2280 NVMe PCIe 3 drive. That's enough of the specs. Let's see what this thing can do. After some installing of software and Windows updates, got everything up and running here. So let's go ahead and let's run Crystal Benchmark and let's see how fast this drive is. Wow, impressive. This actually may be the fastest score that I've gotten on any of my mid-range to lower-end computers. That's impressive. All right, next we're going to do Geekbench 6 and look at both the single-core and multi-core scores. Let's give it a shot and let's see what we end up with. All right, here is our Geekbench score, 2024 single-core, 8,411 multi-core. Now, again, this is my wife's new computer. This is the score of the processor that she currently has. A significant increase across the board. With Geekbench, let's go ahead and do our GPU benchmarking, starting with OpenCL. All right, there is our OpenCL score, 15,286. And there is our Vulkan score for graphics, 18,003. All right, we're going to go to my graphics test, the Unigine Heaven and Valley. Let's see what those scores are going to be. Just to give you a rundown of what our settings are. Under quality, I currently have it set to medium. And under settings, the resolution is 1600 by 900. And anti-aliasing is turned off. VSync is turned off. So let's run the benchmark and let's see what our final score is. And our score is frames per second, 75 with a score of 1890. Putting that in perspective with some other testing that I've done, my Mac Pro 2013 hovers around 68, 69 frames per second with a mid to low score of 1700. Let's go ahead and move on to Unigine Valley and see what that score will turn out to be. All right, our Valley testing is now done. We have a frames per second of 68.6 and a score of 2870. So again, comparing that to my Mac Pro 2013, that score was roughly around 61.9 or 0.8 with a score of around mid 2500. Now, one thing I did forget to mention is that my iProto, which is that N97, I got a frame per second of 27 and a score of roughly 1140. So again, I'm glad that we went with this. Most of what she's going to do is web stuff, so let's do some web tests. All right, knowing that my wife is primarily going to be using single core applications, let's go ahead and we're going to try speedometer. Coming up to the end of the test, and our score is 19.9. Now, in comparison, if we look at the Mac Pro 2013, I got a 10.26 on that one, And my MacBook Pro, which obviously has the M1 processor, we're looking at 32 to 33 on the score. This still isn't bad. This should be perfect for the needs of my wife. In our next test, we're going to do a WebGL sample of the aquarium. Our goal is to see how high we can go and still maintain 60 frames a second. So let's see, we are currently at 500. We are now at 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, and we are still at 60 frames. 20,000, 25,000, and that is probably the best that I've seen with any of the computers that I've played with. That is 30,000 fish, and we're still hitting 60 frames per second. Again, in comparison to the iProda, that's the N97, we got 15,000, but we dropped to 48 frames per second. So we're going to call that a win on this one. All right, I'm a tech writer by trade. This is one of my older projects that I worked on. This is 683 files, and we're going to create a simple website. We do know that in the prior test on the iProda, we got 1 minute and 27 seconds. We're going to see what we get here. I got my stopwatch ready right there, and we're going to do, let's see, try to switch hands there. HTML document 3, 2, 1, and we are now exporting. Again, with the iProda, the N97 processor, 16 megs of RAM, 512 gig hard drive. We're going to see how much faster this actually is. We're at 20 seconds so far. It's now extracting the HTML content. 49.5 seconds. We're going to say 49 flat. That is pretty quick. For our last test, we're going to use DaVinci Resolve to do an export of a 1-minute timeline from a Hey What's Next episode. Sample, of course, not the actual video. We're going to do H.265. We're going to add this to the render queue. And let's see how long this takes. I'm going to render that. And again, we're using H.264 for this. This is the newer graphics compared to any of the other machines that I have, maybe besides the M1 MacBook Pro. And we are zipping along. By the way, the M1 did this in 20 seconds, so let's see what this one does it at. This is a 1080p project, and it takes 24 seconds to render this one. Just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and clear this one out. What if we do H.265? Again, we're using the output folder, and we're going to add this to the render queue. Say replace. Let's see how long this one takes. Okay, wow. 16 seconds for the H.265 master setting. I'm impressed. That beats my M1 MacBook. I did it twice, and I still got 20 seconds, so kudos to GMKtec. I'm going to say that that's a winner. Is the GMKtec M6 going to be fine for my wife and what she wants to do? Let's take it back to the studio for my final thoughts. Well, this mini PC is now on my wife's desk upstairs, and I get the box. So there you go. So far, her overall experience has been positive. So what are my impressions? While the housing is plastic, it has a solid feel, and the build quality is decent. The performance of that AMD Ryzen 5 6600H processor is impressive, especially when it came to exporting that 1080p video project. So with a price of around $300 US on Amazon, the system specs and the ability to add a second storage drive, I can't argue for the value. My only gripe would be that fan, it's not annoying, it's just noticeable under heavy loads. In short, if you're looking for an inexpensive mini PC with decent speed and potential longevity, you or your significant other won't be disappointed. Well, that's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you for watching. If you like this content, please take a moment to give me a thumbs up and share this episode with others. To be notified when I post new content, click the bell, notification, and subscribe icons. In the meantime, feel free to watch one of my other videos either here or here. And until next time, I'll see you again for another episode of Hey, What's Next?